Hello, everybody. This is Alexandra Epple, and
Hi, I'm Tara Coyote.
I support women establishing healthy self-care routines. And Tara is the most amazing.
I'm a life coach and I work with people going through cancer and I work with people with horses.
Yeah, and today we're going to talk about how you can get what you want. And we decided to talk about this because as women, or many women, I should say, have such a rough time really asking for what we need. And we would rather do the things ourselves than ask someone else to help us for whatever reason. But the problem that's coming with that is that we feel overwhelmed, and then we feel frustrated, and then we get stressed out. And then if that goes on for quite some time, we end up with bigger imbalances or dis-eases or just not feeling right, or we have mood swings, or we have all these other, feeling wacko, or maybe our hormones go out of balance. And really what it all comes down to oftentimes is that we simply haven't asked for what we need. So Tara,
Exactly.
right? Isn't that so true? And so what we want to talk about today is how can we get what we want? How can we actually set boundaries? So what do you think, Tara? I mean, I know you have like your own personal journey around this too.
Definitely. I think proper healthy boundaries are very, very, very important for self-care. I mean, just to share a little bit of my journey, I was diagnosed with a stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis about 1.5 years ago. I chose to treat it naturally. As you could tell, I have my hair. And I worked with women around the issue of boundaries, and I even have a free ebook about it. And I thought I was quite proficient with boundaries. But when I got diagnosed, I realized that I really had to improve my boundaries. And proper boundaries has come up all the way around with friends, with family, with the health profession. And really, it's so important to take great care of yourself, to have healthy, strong boundaries. But it's tricky to learn how to set those boundaries. And it does take time and practice.
What do you think the requirement is to set boundaries? I mean, what it comes down to me at the first stage for me is simply being aware of what our needs are.
Right. Yeah. Step one, for sure, being tuned into your body, to your mind, to what you're needing in whatever moment it is.
And it's actually,
and then being willing to ask for it.
Totally. And that's actually easier said than done for most people, because what does that require? It really requires us to pause and to feel what's present. And then it's like, that's scary in the first place. Often, isn't it?
And then to take a step forward and ask for what you want and need. That's another thing that women especially, it's tough for us. We're used to just putting others before ourselves. So it's really a practice, you're right, of just tuning in and what do I need in this moment and how can I ask for it, and knowing you're deserving to achieve it.
Yeah, and when I think about how I grew up, and I grew up in an amazing family and loving parents and all of that. But there was one thing in my family that I reflecting back now is that needs were being communicated with emotions. So say my mom had needs, the need of us cleaning up the kitchen, or taking off the shoes in front of the house, or whatever it was. And she may not say that on a daily basis, but then it would bubble up and bubble up and bubble up. And the communication wouldn't happen verbally and asking us, hey, and getting an agreement from us, would you please do X, Y, and Z? But instead, it may come out in an emotion, in being, oh, mom's frustrated, I think she needs something. And I think I took that on too. In my 20s, I communicated my needs with emotions. I was slamming doors. I even remember throwing a pot lid at my ex-husband at one point because he drove me so crazy. I felt like I couldn't express what I needed. And so I expressed it with my emotions. And so unskillful, right? So unskillful. But it's really that awareness of like, oh, what did I actually need in that moment? Actually, in that moment, I needed to be heard in
Right.
that potlet example. So actually what I should have done in that moment would have been, hey, you don't hear me. Pause, please pause and listen. And so that would
Mm-hmm.
be much, much more, that would have been the boundary of like, be present with me. I need you right now to hear me. Right.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, and then having that awareness to speak whatever it is that's up. What we talk about with the horse work I do, the energy dial, it's from 1 to 10, and 1 is just like asking what your needs are. And then if somebody doesn't listen, you escalate the dial. But usually people go from 0 to 10, like you ask for what you need and you don't get it. And then you throw the pot lid instead of slowly build your way up and saying, hey, I'm sorry, you really didn't hear me. I really would love for you to hear me now. So, but learning how to communicate in that way, because we're not taught like that. So it's quite a process.
right. So it's really about what do you need? Then, like you said, communicating that and then asking for a
Mm-hmm.
specific request. But what's in it, what you just said, we can't expect if we make a request that the other person will actually fulfill that request.
True.
That we cannot
True.
assume, right? But what we
Right.
can do is really ask for what we need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what do we do if we have a request? So let's say the request is, will you take out the garbage every Monday? And your husband says, or your boyfriend or whatever says, no, I don't want to do that. What do we do? Because then we ask for what we needed, but we're not getting it. So now what?
Right. Well, maybe there's you need to find another way to get your needs met. Maybe there's some discussion that needs to happen about why he's not willing to do it. And maybe you can come to a place of doing it yourself. So, and maybe what's required is really tuning in to where you're willing to go in that exchange around the garbage or whatever it is, of having that own self insight about yourself. Because a lot of times too, what I find with people with boundaries, and I definitely have felt that in myself, if you allow your boundaries to be crossed, you become resentful at the other person. But really, if my boundaries are crossed, it's my responsibility to speak up and to hold my boundaries clear. It's not the other person. So really learning how to negotiate that within yourself and effectively within relationships.
Yeah.
It's a
The
whole
other
relearning, basically.
Yeah, and the other piece that I think is really important also to get what you want is really knowing your values and what's
Mm-hmm.
important to you. And then saying yes to what aligns to your values and saying no to what doesn't align to your values. So, like, as an example, I mean, this is such a silly example, but I know one of my values is being present with people and really having meaningful conversations. That's really high on my value list. And if it's 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I am so tired. I am so not willing to have, I'm not present. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. So if
Right.
I need to go out with someone at 11 o'clock at night to have a beer in some beer garden in Germany, that isn't going to serve anyone. And I'm overstepping my boundaries because my boundaries are going to bed early. I like to go to bed early. That's because I want to be present with people and because of so many other reasons. But yeah, really knowing your values and then saying yes to the things that align with those values and saying no to the things that don't align to those values, I think is also a very
Mm-hmm.
key component.
Definitely, right. And like we were chatting about earlier, like knowing when a yes is a yes and knowing when a no is a no, and paying attention to that, giving yourself value for whatever it is you need and want.
And then also have the courage to say no, because that's another
Mm-hmm.
piece. We have such fear as women. Women have such a fear in general, I would say, to say no to things that they don't want to do.
True.
Yeah. Do you have a
Right.
personal story around that that you can share? Anything on?
Oh gosh. So for me, it's sort of unending because I tend to be a giver. And right now I'm in the public eye with my cancer journey, and I have a lot of people reaching out for advice. So my current challenge is to really limit when I'm on social media, because otherwise I'm just bombarded with lots of questions and such. So for me, my no is, okay, Tara, you're going to go on and answer questions for an hour, and then you'll get off and you won't be pulled to your phone in between it all. So that's my no and my boundaries that I'm currently working on right now. And I know if I cross those boundaries, I'll feel depleted and like I've overgiven. So that's a very real example that's happening right now in my life.
That's such an awesome example. And isn't that so true? Especially with social media, we get sucked in. And if we're not clear around our boundaries, around our device rules, we get we give, whatever, you know.
It's quite common, I think. I think everyone's wrestling with their own version of that right now with social media and such, computers.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could talk about this topic for forever, but let's keep it at that. I think that's okay. A lot of little pieces. But maybe we have a podcast at some point around boundaries, because I think it's such a rich conversation, and it's really a skill that we can develop, and it's not put to us in the womb per se. If we haven't learned it growing up, we need to take action to learn it as we're adults. So,
right, never too late to learn it.
Exactly. The time to start is now. Yes. All right, you guys. Thank you for listening.
Oh, and I just wanted to say, I do have a free ebook about boundaries. If you're interested, we will put the link on this video here. So if you want to, you can receive it. I'd be happy to send it in your direction.
Awesome. Yes, thanks for sharing that. Almost forgot about that. All right, you guys. Bye for now.
Bye.